What's up, guys? We got some really exciting news. I'm Nameco sitting here with Dustin. Before we get into the waiver wire, Dustin, let him have it.
We're gonna have games for football on our website. It's gonna be pretty sweet. We're gonna have weekly pick'em game coupled up with a survivor. So if you guys, play weekly pick'ems with your friends or do survivor leagues, it's really easy to use. You guys are gonna love it.
Yeah, and basically all you have to do is go to our homepage, click on the contest tab, enter in a little bit of information, and you're good to go. And if you do want to create your own league and invite your friends, you're good to go there, but you'll also be entered in our national contest.
And we're going to have prizes, weekly local prizes, weekly national prizes, and also the national grand prize, which is an all-expense-paid trip for 2 to Hawaii.
Ridiculous.
Moving up in the world. Moving up. Let's get into the waiver wire. Let's start with the outfielders and Delman Young. If you want to win some money on your friends, ask him how old you think Delman Young is, because we were shocked that he's still only 25. He's been around forever. He's still only 25. He's on pace for a career year. He hasn't really broken out, but we know he has a huge upside. This could be the year, only on 20% of leagues. Another guy who's looking for that breakout year is Jay Bruce. We were shocked to see he's only on 70% of leagues. Now, his numbers aren't going to blow you away for what he's done so far this year, but he has had decent numbers. And again, it's just that upside with Bruce that just really makes us think that he should be owned in more leagues.
And the first outfielder I'm going to talk about is Julio Bourbon. Now, we loved this guy coming into the year, and right now he's only owned in 30% of leagues, and a lot of people dropped him early on. But since June 1st, he's raised his batting average 50 points. I mean, that's ridiculous. And he's certainly going to get you that speed that we first initially thought about way back when, so I'll get you some bags. And before he was batting about 50 points below, he was batting 7th, 8th in the lineup. Last game, they moved him to the second spot. We don't know if that's going to stick, but if it does, that certainly increases his fantasy value. And next, I'm going to talk about Adam Jones, owned in 70% of leagues. Now, he got off to that ridiculous start last year. Everyone was loving him. Started slow now, and he's slowly moving up. He's raised his batting average about 20 points in the last month or so. He's going to get you a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. Certainly worth keeping an eye on, or a prospective ad for your team.
Next, I got a couple of second basemen for you, and we start with Sean Rodriguez out there in Tampa Bay. He plays second base, also has outfield eligibility, which is a nice plus. He's only on 10% of leagues, but get this, 14-game hit streak. Now, there's no guarantees he has a job once everyone's healthy out there, but it's hard to ignore how great he's playing right now. We think his job is safe, and he's worth an ad if you're looking for a second baseman. Another second baseman that we were shocked to see, only owned in 70% of leagues, Howie Kendrick. I mean, how does that happen? This guy, he was probably my favorite sleeper second baseman coming into the year. Get this, 6 of the last 9 games, he's had multi-hit games. He's really hitting the ball well right now. Pick him up now before it's too late. We think he has value for the rest of the season.
All right, now I'm going to talk about 2 pitchers, and the starting pitcher is Edwin Jackson, owned in 60% of leagues. He's lowered his ERA 3 points over the last month or so, but it's from an 8 to a 5, so take it as it is. But his K counts are very high over this time frame. Keep an eye on Edwin Jackson. Next, we have Jason Mott, relief pitcher for the Cardinals, only owned in 5% of leagues, and that's probably because he's not getting the saves because Franklin's pitching so well right now. But if Franklin does slip, Mott's certainly in line, and it proves that he can get it done.
Moving on, we're going to give you all some guidelines on what to look for on the waiver wire as far as numbers go to help you try to find that next diamond in the rough guy. And I'm going to start with young guys. First thing I look at is age. If they're over 27 and they've never had a fantasy relevant season, I normally just leave those guys alone. If they haven't figured it out by then, they're probably not going to. Next thing I look at is at bats. If they've had less than 500 at bats, rookies, I don't necessarily trust those guys. More than likely, there's going to be an adjustment period once pitchers figure them out a little bit. You don't really want to own them during that period. Now, as far as having a lot of at bats, if they've had 2,000 at bats or more and they haven't had a fantasy relevant season, more than likely they're not going to figure it out. So that golden zone is right there at 500 at bats to 2,000 at bats under the age of 27. You stick to those guidelines, you're going to have a much better chance of finding that next diamond in the rough.
And a guy that Dustin's talking about that's had over 2,000 at bats, that's having a huge year, is a guy like Ty Wigington. He's playing out of his mind right now, and you're probably loving owning him if he's on your team. But like Dustin said, based on the criteria, we really do think he's going to come crashing down, so he might be a good time to trade him if you can. And also along the lines of fantasy relevant seasons, if you have a big name star that hasn't had a fantasy relevant season in a couple years, but he's playing out of his mind right now, aka Jose Guillen or Paul Konerko, again, that 2 to 3 year gap, it's more likely he's definitely on the downside of his career and not resurrecting it at this point. All right, let's get into our forum question. And Dustin, this one comes from Bobo, and the reason I'm bringing your name is you approved this trade, and he got laughed at in his league, so I want you to defend yourself. So Bobo gave up Alex Rios, Justin Morneau, and Phillips, and in return got Albert Pujols, Kelly Johnson, and the promise of Brian Roberts.
Well, first, I like the trade of the promise of giving a guy that's hurt. I mean, it's nice he's going to ride him out for you. Hopefully he'll be back in a week. But here's the deal. I mean, Morneau and Rios are playing out of their minds right now. They're not going to keep this up. Yeah, Phillips, decent second baseman, but honestly, that's a fair trade almost just for Pujols alone. You get the 2 free roster spots, and you get the best player in the league. But you get a decent second baseman in return. They won't be laughing at you for much longer on this one. Hopefully Roberts will come back. He can give you some value when it counts the most, but Pujols is by far best player in the league, and you're going to be happy he's on your team down the stretch.
And this is coming from a huge Twin fan, or better yet, a huge Morneau fan. The name of our league is Morneau heading to the Hall.
I mean, the guy's amazing, but he's not Albert Pujols. So be happy about this trade, and you get that free roster spot. Hopefully you use it wisely, and you'll help make this trade even better for you. So that's it for this week's show. I'm Dustin. This is Brent. Get on to Fantasy Smack Talk and sign up for our football games. We got to fill that up. That's it for this week. We'll see you next week.